was quite a lengthy job, and it all started from me having a broken component, which was the main head for my Stihl Strimmer, and it basically is worn through. It's one of those sort of bounce and feed arrangements, and where you constantly hit the ground and you have this turning around at high velocity on the surface, and gradually this plastic wears away, and hence it needed replacing. But I was most surprised when I ordered the replacement part. I got a component which looked completely different, and obviously Stihl have changed the makeup of replacement heads for their Strimmers, and it's certainly for the right model because it's very clear what models it covers. But basically it's an auto cut sort of feed, and it's a very different arrangement for this, and actually looks far superior. But don't be surprised if you've got a Stihl Strimmer and the replacement part looks somewhat different. The other thing that was important is that I've used this lubricant provided by the manufacturer. You can probably get equivalents, but when you don't really know what the best lubricants are to use, it's best to use the manufacturers. And there's a couple of points on there which I've lubricated and basically given the machine a good old wash down and given the spark plug a bit of a refurbish, and it started first time. And surprisingly, the grass cutter guard is orange. It's been a long time since it's been orange. It's a brilliant machine, and it's long overdue to have had that sort of home service, and pleased to have got it done. And I'm actually looking forward to using it, which is most surprising. Well, I've been promising to do this for days, and now I've got trousers on, I can get on with it. And I know lots of people have said if I train these brambles in and tie them in, then I will get fruit. But as I said before, there's plenty of blackberries to be had around this area, so it's not really a priority of mine. I'm just going to clear it up. So I've got some serious jungle clearing to do today, and what I really want to try and do is get into these two netted beds, because these were the beds that I grew the tagetes along the back in an attempt to try and keep down the bindweed, the stuff which I'm pulling out now. So I really want to get in there and see whether that's had any success at all. And what I have heard is that it really takes a couple of years of doing it to reap the rewards of your efforts. But I'm hoping that'll be an initial reaction anyway. So I'll put this on time lapse because I think it's going to take me a while. I'm going to try and reveal these beautiful roses while I'm doing it. And then if I can get clear, I'll get these nets off and we'll have a good look in. Get my barracks, I think there's going to be a lot of waste. Right. Well, I think I've had enough jungle bashing for this morning, and that's what came out of there, which was, well, I've just left it too long really. But it is lovely to see this climbing rose in all its glory, and hopefully that will give it a chance to flourish and us a chance to see the blooms. And down the back here you can see how prolific this bramble is, and well, just trying to keep it under control really. And if you want any blackberries, that's the place to go if you dare. Right, I think it's time for me to get rid of that green waste, and then we'll do a bit of a reveal on these cabbages and this kale, get the nets off, have a look down the other side where I put the tagetes, and just make an assessment of whether we think we're having any impact or not. Right, nets off time. Let's see what we've got. And these nets are just sort of laid over the top. I've got a couple of stones on them and they sort of go over the corners. So let's get them undone. Right, first of all, let's see whether the tagetes have actually prevailed. So there's one good size plant there and there's a couple in there, but they are absolutely inundated by bindweed, which a number of people said highly probable because it takes a few years. But I don't know, you'd have to plant an awful lot of tagetes, I think, to make that work. They do smell sort of minty when you disturb them, that sort of characteristic marigold sort of smell. But look at that bindweed coming out of here. I can't say that I think that it's done anything this year. I suppose it's always difficult to tell whether you've impeded it and there would have been a lot more, but based on what I'm finding, that's quite a lot. So I'm gonna have to just get in there and weed this one. And while I'm in here, having had those few butterflies in there, I'm gonna take a good look and see if I can see any caterpillars. Let's have a look at the kale bed then. So the kale bed, yeah, the plants are still doing okay, but the bindweed is growing up them. So, well, if anybody's had tremendous success with this, then please put in the comments your process and what you found, any learns that you had, so that everybody can benefit, because I know a lot of people showed interest in that particular video, and no doubt it's because so many people are suffering the same challenges. God, look at it in there. There's a few weeds in here as well, but certainly a lot of bindweed. Okay, I'm going to get in here and give everything a good weed and then work out what the next steps are in these beds. There we go, simple and quick. I have been taking off any lower leaves that are really munched, like this one. And looking at them, I can't see any evidence of caterpillars, which is interesting. I think probably it's slug damage. I did get one really big slug out of here, so I would imagine he's been having a feast. And I can't see any sign of eggs or anything on the leaves, so there we are. That's a good weed, and the actual weed growth underneath the cabbage leaves was fairly low level stuff. And I'm going to put this net right back on top because I think they're going to heart up now, and in terms of pushing the net up, not quite the same problem as what's happening here on the kale. Okay, I'll get the net back on this one and then we'll take a look at the kale. So this red Ursa kale is looking really good. You can just see where coming up against the net is causing them to crumple. So I think what I'm going to do with this bed, because it obviously is going to grow that much taller than those cabbage, is I'm going to drape the net over it. I'm going to try and raise it a little by just pulling up these hoops a fraction and then drape it over the top so there's no real tension on the net. see if I can, well, what will happen is hopefully the growth will just push the net in the direction that it's going and not cause any sort of disfigurement of the leaves, which is what I'm trying to prevent. And there we are, there's the weed and the well chewed leaves of the two beds. Not too bad. Well, I've had, I don't know, a dozen tomatoes so far, but looking this morning, I can see lots of bright red tomatoes waiting to be picked. So I'm going to have a whip round, see what I can find. And at this stage, the early tomatoes, I like to pick them rather than, you know, just wait till I've got a huge amount. I can see from the plants, and a number of you have remarked, the amount of flowers on these tomatoes is, well, more than I've ever experienced. So it looks like we're heading for a bumper year of tomatoes, so no harm in getting these early ones that are ripening off the vines. So work my way around, see what we get. I'll show you at the end. When I get you in close, you can just see how many flowers there are on these letar bushes. I honestly think this is, for me, the perfect combination of tomato plants. They're all bush variety, except for these two super sweets, which were given to me, so they weren't on my plan for growing, but happy to accommodate them. But this lower growing type of tomato requires so little maintenance. Just that bit of tying in of the branches so that they don't sprawl too much. And it really makes tomato growing a pleasure. And you can see there's some fairly sizable tomatoes on these letar plants. And they're getting bigger. The earlier ones seem to be smaller, and then they get that much bigger. And these romas are really starting to produce quite a lot of flowers now. And we've got lots of good fruit developing in and amongst the leaves. So they're going to be good. And then the ones that have grown in the bed, well, I'd have to say the pots are probably bigger. I don't know whether that's because when I water them, the water's more focused, and this bed obviously will take a lot of water, and it's got some other plants in it as well that are utilizing that water. So maybe that's the case, but they're not quite as big. Still very easy to grow, and the beauty of letar under the bench is that they're just not pushing up through the bench top, so you can carry on using your bench productively. These are my purple sprouting broccoli that I planted just the other day, and I'm really soaking them because, well, the water dries out in here very quickly during the day, and I just want to make sure, having just transplanted them, that they're all doing well. And my cucumbers are growing upwards. Fantastic. Okay, how's the house doing? Well, you can see the sort of volume of tomatoes that you get on these little bushes. Just don't want to cramp it style. I'm going to move it away from that basil. But they're all very similar, just giving a really nice volume of fruit coming very shortly. Okay, that's the greenhouse. Oh, and this is what I ended up picking today. So I'll keep us going for a couple of days with some salads. Wonderful. Well, nobody likes to see me mow. They've made the comments a number of times. I get that. It's not that riveting to watch someone mow the lawn. But as I've serviced this and I've got a new head on it, I'm going to do a bit of strimming just to make sure it's all working well. And this new head is like an auto feed. It's a completely different arrangement to the one I had before, as I explained earlier on in the video. And it'll be really interesting to see how it works, how it feeds. And I'm just going to do these edges in this little area, and I'll let you know whether one of these auto cut self-feeding heads is better than the old traditional type. Well, I have to say, those auto cut heads feed really well. And what I noticed was that when you do something silly and the cord gets completely snapped off, in the old type you'd have to stop, undo it, pull some out because it gets stuck inside. Whereas this, the centrifugal force just sends another piece out. So I think it's probably a considerable improvement. So good times. Well, that's me pretty much done for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I know it's been a bit different. All of those of you that are not interested in tech and tools, I understand. But boys' toys, you know what it is. That Stihl Strimmer saves me an awful lot of work, and it's a very good tool indeed. Well, I hope you've had a good week. Nice warm weekend coming, seriously hot. So take care, and I'll see you all soon. Diolch yn fawr.